So the derp state, we have to talk about the derp state. Okay, everybody. Chris Salcedo has got to tell us the derp state is coming for us. It's a real thing, guys. The deep state is there. It's there. It's all the deep state, aka the establishment, aka the New World Order, aka George Soros's pocket minions.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on News.
Chris, I think you're missing a screen. No, they're all there. Okay, good. All right, I was just making sure.
Max TV. After a year and a half of misery, a cabal of disinformation is finally...
A cabal of disinformation. Yes, right out of the gate using the QAnon code words. Great work, Chris Salcedo.
...finally feeling the heat. Dr. Fauci, the biased press,
Yeah, he's not actually feeling any heat. He's feeling, well, I mean, like the death threats are a bit much, I do think.
Socialist Democrat Party.
The Socialist Democrat Party. Mm-hmm.
And Communist China are revealing how untrustworthy and dangerous they really are. In fact...
In the same way, or has everybody got different types of distrust? Like, I don't trust you, but I have a rule about people who sit in front of 15, 20 screens? What is that?
It may be...
Honest to God, it looks like you work at a Best Buy outlet store.
Worse than...
It's like, welcome to Chris Salcedo's open box.
Any of us have thought. The deep state is real and working to harm the USA.
Dun, dun, dun. This is from his preamble, and he puts it in quotes, even though he said it.
Disturbing revelations in tonight's preamble.
Very scary.
Over the weekend, a pro-American president, President Trump, spoke at the North Carolina GOP convention.
Oh, did he?
In his speech, he reflected on the increased scrutiny being paid to Dr. Fauci and his enablers in the left wing, including those in the Democrat Party and the basket of biased press.
The media, the Democrats, and the so-called experts are now finally admitting what I first said 13 months ago. The evidence demonstrates that the virus originated in a Chinese government lab. Couldn't say it.
Yeah, you still can't say it because you don't know that. What people are talking about now is that it came from Wuhan. Well, we know it came from Wuhan. It was in the Hubei province, and that's where the outbreak started. The idea, the question is, was it created in a lab and it escaped? Did they find a sample of it from somebody and they were testing it and it escaped? Was it somebody who had the animals that were there and then they sold them for a quick buck in the wet market? Did it come from the wet market? Was it related? Were they testing? Did they put it next to the big wet market because they were, over time they knew that they were always accessing the stuff and it was a source of material to test all the time to make sure, like you'd have like if you want to check things that are coming in through ports, you set up the checkpoint at the port, right? That kind of idea. Nobody's questioning about where it came from geographically. And last year, nobody was like, we can't say it came from a lab. And by the way, if it did, again, worse for Trump. If what they are insisting on, if Chris Salcedo wants us all to believe that Trump is right, and by the way, he looks really tired. If Trump is saying the truth here, right? Then he was president during the largest bioweapon attack in American history, and his response was to sell them a lot of beef. They're buying, the farmers are doing so well. 600,000 dead, $2 billion worth of beef. I mean, honestly.
You couldn't say it. And Dr. Fauci, who I actually got along with, he's a nice guy. He's a great promoter, Not a great doctor, but he's a hell of a promoter. He likes television more than any politician in this room. And they like television.
It's true. Dr. Fauci has been...
I pity everyone at Newsmax going through that speech, trying to find clips to play.
Been more politician than physician.
Well, he's a representative of the NIH and the CDC, and he oversees a large group of people. I mean, see, the thing is, Chris, he's got actual responsibilities. Something you and I would know nothing about, except in our own, I guess, personal lives.
He has confined his interviews to largely dishonest left-wing outlets. He even graced the cover of InStyle magazine.
Yeah, apparently they went through a lot to put the thing up. They didn't just go interview him and then just take a snapshot during the interview.
Because, you know, nothing sends the message of a doctor working tirelessly to protect the American people like a guy in shades lounging at his pool while countless millions suffered at the hands.
Oh, really? So Trump golfing was fine. Really?
Hands of the China virus. But it seems that Dr. Fauci...
That's true. Simcoe Nuts says, Chris has responsibilities, how he's got all those screens to watch. It must be exhausting. I mean, it's nice to see your own name
perhaps
repeated.
for the first time in his long career of sponging off the American taxpayer.
That's what he does. He sponges off them. Yeah.
Is getting increased.
It's not, I mean, it's why HIV is a survivable and livable disease now as opposed to a death sentence, but whatever.
Scrutiny because of his decisions. Those decisions may have led to communist China imperiling the world with a deadly virus that broke containment at a Wuhan lab.
It broke containment. Did it burst out of there like a Fast and Furious installment?
And as more information leaks out and Fauci's left-wing allies run for cover, His Eminence appears a bit unnerved.
You should want to know how this happened so that we can make sure it doesn't happen again. But what's happened in the middle of all that, I've become the object of extraordinary, I believe, completely inappropriate, distorted, misleading, and misrepresented attacks.
Yeah, he's talking about you, Chris.
Which, you know, it is what it is, but it's happening. And
yeah, this sounds like a man on the edge of panic.
And that's unfortunate.
But many of you may be wondering.
I love it. It's like he's feeling the heat. He's like, well, you know, you'll want to know the answer. Whether if it came from the lab because they made it, we're going to need to know that we're going to want to know those answers. But I think pointing at me as the one who released it somehow, it's interesting that they want it to be Fauci's fault, right? But Trump ignoring it for 6 months and going, I think it goes away in April. Like, they're just going to sidestep all of that?
Wondering why so many anti-American elements in and out of the media have begun to abandon Fauci.
Well, you never liked him to start with. I mean, I consider you anti-American, Chris. I mean,
why now?
Gee, because they aren't?
Why has the
he was just, you do realize you just showed him on from a clip on Rachel Maddow's show, right?
China narrative.
Basically, he was the get.
That had suppressed the Wuhan lab leak theory since last year, suddenly it's meeting opposition. Now, something's changed, right? I wasn't quite sure what that something was until now.
Dun, dun, dun.
In an exclusive report backed by independent reporting from former Fox News
from Red State
journalist
former Fox News
Housley, Red State is reporting that a high-ranking Chinese defector has been in U.S. custody for over 3 months.
Okay.
It's also reported that this defector has direct knowledge of several Chinese special weapons programs.
Fascinating. Okay, so again, Chris, Booby, I don't think you want to go there. Because if what you're alleging is true, then and you want to go this route, Donald Trump was president during the largest bioweapon attack in American history, and his response was to sell China all of our beef, corn, and soybeans while Americans were in food lines. You do realize every bit of this that comes out makes Trump look worse, makes his response look worse, makes him look like a more weak and feckless leader.
Including China's bioweapons program. Now, at this point, we should remind you that those same people who were calling the lab leak theory a conspiracy theory,
well, it is, and it still is,
are now saying the same thing about China's bioweapons program.
They are?
The problem is, and I've done this myself, we can't conflate the conspiracy
Is this a Fox clip?
theories that were going around, people saying it was a bioweapon, with the legitimate question of whether there was some kind of lax safety procedure in that lab where they were working with these kind of viruses, and that's how the pandemic might have originated.
How dare this woman try to defend Donald Trump? Go get him, Chris.
Even after the lab leak house of cards is in the midst of crumbling, Mara Liasson of NPR, with no pushback from Fox News, is alleging that a bioweapons program is, you guessed it, a conspiracy theory.
No, she didn't say that at all, dipshit. She said it's a conspiracy theory about this disease, particularly being an attack by China. Not that they have a bioweapons strategy, which they very well may have, but that's a separate argument from whether or not, again, that COVID-19, as you are alleging, is effectively a bioweapon, according to your argument. And again, if so, Trump was president when 500,000 Americans were killed with a bioweapon, and his response was, I've talked to Xi, they're being very transparent. They're handling it very professionally. I think the bioweapon goes away in April. We've got 14 dead from the bioweapon, and I think it's going to go to 0. There's a bunch of people that have been attacked by a bioweapon on a cruise ship. I don't want to bring them on shore because it raises our killed by a bioweapon numbers, and I don't want my numbers going up or whatever. I don't even think you need a mask to avoid the bioweapon, honestly. China's attacking us, and I think, yes, we have a vaccine that can protect you from the bioweapon, but I think it's your freedom of choice. If you don't want to protect yourself from the bioweapon, then, think about how deep this argument goes. Think about every time they make this argument that Trump allowed this, disregarded all the concerns about it as it was happening, shrugged it off, and then sold that much food to the country of origin that he's accusing of attacking. I mean, how the shit do they think? How does this measure? How do they think this will do to his standing in history, to Trump's standing in history?
A sentiment echoed by Dr. Fauci himself over at CNN.
I don't remember what's in that redacted, but the idea, I think, is quite far-fetched that the Chinese deliberately engineered something so that they could kill themselves as well as other people. I think that's a bit far out, John.
I don't think it's far-fetched at all. In fact,
as a huge fan of Donald Trump, I think that the Chinese would definitely sacrifice some of their own people just to kill 600,000 of our people. And I think, really, if you think about it, it will go away with the heat. Maybe Trump was right that a light bulb up the ass and bleach down your gullet was the thing to fight off a bioweapon. If we'd only had Donald Trump around when mustard gas was invented.
In fact, knowing how maniacal and inhuman communists are, it's 100% consistent with what we know about regimes that are made up of such godless, cold butchers.
Well, then why did Trump ignore it for months and months and sign and basically literally even said, Trump said that he didn't want to put any pressure on China in the beginning of the pandemic because he was trying to get his trade deal passed with these bloodthirsty monsters.
According to sources in our intelligence community who spoke to Red State and Adam Housley, a person believed to be among the highest-ranking defectors ever to come to the United States from the...
Did they come to the United States in a double-decker bus from China?
People's Republic of China has been working with the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. The defector has direct knowledge of special weapons programs in China, including bioweapons programs. But here's the truly frightening aspect of this story.
That he's pretty sure it doesn't go away with the heat.
The FBI, in particular FBI Director Christopher Wray, and the CIA was not informed the DIA had this defector in custody.
During the Trump administration? So fish stinks from the head, and why not? So if George Bush ignores the PDB and 9/11 happens, and we get into the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, which, Trump and all of his minions also agree that it was, a huge blunder, that maybe if he was paying attention, that wouldn't have even happened in the first place. But we're supposed to, all of a sudden these companies like the DIA, the CIA, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security are not talking to each other again during the Trump years because why? Chaos, bullshit? What were they talking about?
Red State alleges that Director Wray was, quote, ambushed with the information that the high-ranking Chinese official was cooperative with the United States and the authorities and was spilling,
when?
by the way, this proverbial beans on Communist China's
Yes, proverbial beans.
malign activities. Sources revealed that DIA leadership, who I have to assume are pro-American Trump holdovers, the DIA leadership kept the defector within their clandestine services network to prevent Langley and the State Department from accessing this Chinese defector. Now, why would they do that?
Because they're Trump supporters. What?
The Red State report says it's because DIA leadership believes there are Chinese spies or sources inside the FBI, inside the CIA, inside the State Department, and several other federal agencies.
So they knew about this stuff, Trump holdovers, so they couldn't talk to the Trump holdovers or supporters in the CIA, the FBI during the Trump years when he's actually DOJ. They couldn't. Doesn't he have a president's daily brief? Didn't the DIA actually have somebody in the room? What are you talking about?
In other words, there are elements in our own government working to protect China's malign activity against the United States.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Yeah, he ignored the pandemic for months until he got his trade deal signed, and then he got a little mad about it, but it didn't stop him from selling him a shit ton of food.
They're traitors. Adam Housley further reports that Communist China is actively trying to cover up their culpability in the pandemic. Housley tweeting, quote, U.S. intelligence has a Chinese defector with Wuhan info, and China is trying...
No, excuse me, not and China. And
to produce variants.
And China is trying to produce variants
that suggest it came from bats to cover up that coronavirus originally came from a lab.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like the Dominion voting machines conspiracy concept, but with bat viruses.
End quote. Not to put too fine a point on this, my friends, but President...
Dude, you're a blunt instrument.
Trump has been proven right again.
How? What are you talking? Dude, this makes him look horrible. Honest to God. This should make every Trump supporter tremble in fear that he was president. By the way, the cupboards were bare. He left them that way for 3 years. He did nothing. By the time the pandemic hit, we had no material response left. Everything was rotting on the shelves. The rubber seals on ventilators and all those things had all cracked and gone to waste because you have to rotate those through. It's why we give away the ones or we get them regularly serviced. He let the service contract expire. He dismantled the pandemic response team that was put together to deal with such a thing. The pandemic response team, by the way, they're going to deal with a pandemic whether it was intentional or accidental. They don't give a shit. They're just going to identify it and push back against it. He got rid of them entirely 2 years before this shit hit. How does this not make Trump look like the worst president ever?
And that leads me back to his speech in North Carolina this weekend.
But Fauci has perhaps never been more wrong than when he denied the virus and where it came from. The time has come for America and the world to demand reparations and accountability from the Communist Party of China.
Why don't we, here's my question. Why don't we demand reparations and accountability from you? I mean, you were running this country when this happened, and you literally ignored it at every turn. You downplayed it. If this was the serious attack you're talking about, you couldn't have given less of a shit about it. And by the way, Fauci didn't deny the virus. I don't know what that. I don't know what it says.
We should all declare within
Thanks,
one
Melissa.
unified voice that China must pay. They must pay.
Yeah, well, you didn't say that while you were president, did you? China must pay. for all this beef, corn, and soybeans. Basically, our people are starving because their jobs are all shut down because of this disease. But China, take all of our extra food stores. There will be more. Nothing bad's going to happen. Nothing will happen to our meat processing plants. Jesus.
The majority of Americans agree with President Trump, but it seems elements in our own government do not. And it seems to me that the same people who opposed President Trump in his first term are the same people who claim that the lab leak scenario and Chinese bioweapons program are a conspiracy theory.
No. They're a theory at this point. The conspiracy theory is, when did Trump know that the virus was coming to the country? Did he actually believe it came from a lab as early as he said he did? If that's true, then he ignored it to get his trade deal through. And what did he get from the trade deal besides 500,000 dead Americans and them only meeting? It was only phase one of the trade deal, and they only paid for a third of it. They were supposed to buy $30 billion worth of stuff, and it was like a little under $13 billion.
It also seems to me that these are the same people who leaked to undermine President Trump and benefit communist China during Trump's presidency.
Really? What did they leak? Because it's whatever they said, it's true, because you can't leak a lie.
In the last 4 years, we've all heard the term deep state.
Uh-huh.
It's one thing to suspect it's real. It's quite another to have its existence confirmed and to know.
Was it confirmed? How's it confirmed?
Know that these deep staters are working for the benefit of the world's biggest human rights abuser, the biggest usurper of liberty and freedom in the world.
So the deep state is not like entrenched bureaucrats and people who, play both sides against the middle and stuff, but they're literally Chinese moles now.
It's China.
Okay.
Socialist Democrats, the biased press, and elements of our own government are protecting a regime that just killed over 3.7 million people worldwide and counting. And some of
How? I didn't think you even believed in this.
those very same people are working not only to cover up for China, but to cover up their own involvement and their deception.
So I'm sorry. So members of the deep state and the FBI and the CIA are what, flying to China to like scavenge up bat meat so they can create fake versions of the virus so they can cover their tracks?
They can't be allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, find them.
Can they?
Whoever they are. That's it?
They can't be allowed to get away with it. Can they?
Yeah, there you go. I'm convinced. I don't know about you, but I'm convinced that Donald Trump is literally the worst president ever. Because if you are aware of reality, that this disease killed upwards of 580,000 Americans, and Trump was like, it goes away in the spring, and maybe there's a way to get disinfectant in the lungs. And I think they're being very professional through the first 6 months of the thing, avoided lockdowns entirely. And even with a full lockdown that started in March, we still had 500,000 people plus die by the end of the year. And over the course of this process, it's going to go away. Probably it'll be good. And next year, our economy is going to take off like a rocket ship. And, if you want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. And all that back and forth. And just the abject weakness of his leadership skills, his ability to communicate a strategy, his belief in solutions, his understanding of the science, like all of it is this crayons and hammers, third grade level understanding of life and science and leadership, all these things. That's bad enough. But if you go by Newsmax's argument here, again, I can't state this strongly enough. I'm saying it till I'm blue in the face, but it's true. According to Newsmax, the Chinese attacked us with a bioweapon. It was the most effective bioweapon attack in American history. Trump signed a trade deal with the people that attacked us, ignored it, defended them, and then sold them the 65% of our food stores while huge food lines were appearing all over the country. This is Newsmax's argument. This is why Newsmax thinks Donald Trump is the pro-America, the America first leader that they've been begging Jesus to send their whole lives. Because apparently America first to them is, if we're attacked by a foreign entity with a bioweapon, you let it slide for 10 months. This is amazing.